Last year, I was a victim of A levels, and throughout doing my A levels, I made a lot of mistakes. It got me thinking that if I made these mistakes, then a lot of students who are doing their A levels also would make the same mistakes. So why not make a video going over the main mistakes that I made in my A levels and what I would do differently if I were to do my A levels again? Especially for students who are going from their, GCSEs to A levels, they can listen to this video and then avoid making the same mistakes that I made to ensure that they get a good grade in the future. So here are my top 4 mistakes that I made during my A levels. Mistake number 1 was time management. I used to sleep between 12 to 1 a.m. and I had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. so that would leave me just about 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And if you do know, 4 to 5 hours of sleep is horrible for your body. So because of that, I barely used to be able to focus in class. Then I would come back home, and when I came back home, I wouldn't actually get anything. Like, I wouldn't study at all because I was already too exhausted from school. So I would just come home, lay in bed, and do nothing for the whole day, and then repeat, 12, go to sleep again at 12 or 1. In fact, I started binge eating and, being lazy and inconsistent, and I gained a lot of weight during that time, all because I did not have proper time management. So how do you fix this? The way I fix this is by making a to-do list and then making a calendar from that to-do list. So what you're essentially going to do is that before the night before you go to sleep, you're going to write what your tasks are for the next day. You don't have to write many. You can just write 3 or 4. That is more than enough. Once you do write those tasks, I want you to go ahead and convert those to-do list tasks into a calendar. So those 4 tasks that you would have written, I want you to go ahead and go onto your calendar and organize those exact tasks. So for example, if you have study physics, you can set study physics from 6 to 7. If you have go to the gym, you can do that at night from 8 to 9. By 10, you have to go to sleep. I do this every single night, and then I also realized the importance of sleep. So every night I would prioritize at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then you should do the exact same. It is hard. A levels is not like as easy as GCSEs, and you need to be in control of your time. And without doing so, you're going to lose a lot of progress. I do this every night, making sure I got 7 to 8 hours of sleep, which is essential. So that's exactly what you should do as well. Make a to-do list, convert it into a calendar, and make sure you're getting good night's sleep every single night. Now, the second mistake that I made was not studying from day one. And this was probably the biggest mistake that I made. It's not just me, but I think every single person around me made the exact same mistake. We did not start studying from day one. In fact, we did not start studying properly until our first mocks came around. By not studying from day one, I obviously mean we used to study in school, but when we came home, we did not do any extra work. We would just do our own stuff, which was really wrong, because even if I gave myself 1 hour each day to study a subject, I would have gotten much better grades in my mocks. While you could get away with this in your GCSEs, you cannot exactly get away with it in A levels, because A levels requires a lot of consistency, a lot of hard work. And if you do not do it, you're going to slack off, and everything all of the hard work you do is going down the drain. Not studying from day one in A levels is pretty self-destructive. So how exactly do you study from day one? I have 3 tips that you can follow to make sure that you're studying from day one. Now, tip number 1 is that you use the correct revision techniques. So active recall, spaced repetition. You do not use the passive learning techniques. You need to make sure that you're using the most of your time. So you have a limited amount of time. So what you're going to do in it is use effective revision techniques that make you, actively use your brain. And secondly, you're going to save time. By spaced repetition and, active recall, you can save a lot of time. So what you're going to aim to do is use the correct revision technique and utilize your time as much as you can. This is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is fix your sleep schedule. We already talked about this before, but let me elaborate on it again. When you do not get a good night rest, i.e. by that I mean 7 to 8 hours of sleep, if you do not get that, the next day you're going to be pretty tired, and you're going to drain all of your energy out within school hours. Now, when you come back home, you're not going to have any energy to study. You're going to be mentally drained. So when you come back home, you're not going to be able to study, obviously, and because of that, you're not going to get any work done. So the way you want to do this is optimize your sleep. So 7 to 8 to 8, 9 hours. Anywhere 7 to 9 hours is enough. This will leave you with enough energy to come back home and actually do your work. So just because of that sleep, you can get a couple of hours extra of work in when you come back home. So make sure you're utilizing your sleep, and when you come back home, you give at least 1 or 2 hours to your studying as well. And tip number 3 is that do not get overwhelmed. Now, this is something I did, and the way getting overwhelmed works is that there is so much for you to take in, especially in A levels. There's a lot of content to cover, and then within the first week you're gonna be like, oh my god, this is so much, causing you to get overwhelmed and then basically you're going to start giving up. When you start giving up, you're going to stop studying, and all of that work is sort of going to build up eventually and tumble upon you. You know, there's a saying that if you have something going on in your life that you're struggling with, ignoring it won't make it go away. It will just hide the pain. Similarly, when you're studying, what it will do, not studying will not remove studying at all. It will just build up slowly, and eventually when exams come around, you're gonna have so much more to cover, and then you're gonna tumble even more. So the way you want to do it is stay consistent and take everything one by one. I know it can get overwhelming and it is a bit tough. I've been in your shoes, trust me. All you have to do is get a few hours every single day in, and eventually it will become easier when you start studying. It's not, what's important is that you understand what you're studying. If you do not understand what you're studying in A levels, you won't, in GCSEs, you can just memorize stuff and get away with it. But in A levels, you have to develop a proper understanding of the subject. Now, mistake number 3 that I made was not doing enough past papers. And as you can hear, this is pretty much a recipe for disaster. Your aim should be to cover the syllabus as soon as you can so that you can move on to yearly past papers. And then not only just that, but every time you cover a topic, you must go ahead and go whichever website you use and do some topical past paper questions, because past paper questions are obviously the hardest form of questions that you can find on the internet. So the best way you're gonna have a chance of knowing whether you're good at that subject or not is by doing topical past papers questions after each topic. If you can do the topical questions, is well and good, but if you cannot, that means you require a deeper understanding of this of the topic. So go back, read, do practice questions, and then come back to past paper questions again. Another thing is that when you're doing past papers, you learn new stuff. Sometimes you learn new stuff that's not in the syllabus, that's not in the textbook. Exam boards like to do that, but when you're doing past papers, you might find something like that. So make sure you note it down somewhere, or you make a flashcard of it, but make sure that whatever you're learning from the past papers itself, you write it down somewhere, and then you remember it for future cases. And mistake number 4 that I made was not focusing in class. Everything that I'm saying is pretty self-obvious in a sense that, we should know that we shouldn't be doing this, but then again, our brains tell us that we should, and we still do it. So this is just a reminder, essentially, that you should not be doing what I did, what the mistakes I made, and you should not repeat them. When I was doing my A-levels, so for reference, I'll take physics, chemistry, and maths. Our teachers were kind of lenient, so even though we would get work done in class, we would talk a lot. We would enjoy ourselves, basically. And sometimes, even though that's a good thing, we're doing our work, we're enjoying as well. We used to, get overboard with the fun. And due to that, sometimes the concept went over our head, or we missed something, for example. And because of that, I would, some concepts I did not understand completely. Well, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have fun at all. I'm just saying that you should understand the concept. If you don't, feel free to go ahead and ask your teacher to explain it again, because in A levels, it's all about understanding rather than memorization. We focus so much on memorization that it doesn't even matter. If you do not understand the concept, then the future questions that you see, you're not going to be able to answer them because you don't even know the concept. And if you don't keep up, you're basically going to get sucked into an imaginary wormhole where you're going to have no idea what to do. Especially in A levels, because every single question that you see is somehow interlinked with another question or another topic. So you have to make sure that you understand the concept of every single topic that you study. And don't be afraid to ask anyone, for example, your teachers, search on YouTube or whatever it is, but make sure that you understand the concept. Do not be afraid to ask your teachers for help, or your parents for help, or anyone for help if you need it. Overall, it's just about how productive you can be and how good your productivity is. A levels is not that hard as everyone says it is, but it just comes down to a matter of focus, productivity, and how good you are. How good you are with time management, with Excel, stuff like that, basically. If you found this video helpful, please do leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below, because it gives me a boost in the algorithm. And if you would want to check out these videos, this one is about, over here, this is about how you can effectively use the Pomodoro technique, and this one is how to stay focused. So go ahead and check those videos out as well. I will see you with another video very, very soon. Thank you again for watching this video, and take care, and goodbye.